G'day, this is Mr. Thompson and I'm going to show you how to put all of the parts that you've created together into an assembly of your CO2 Dragster. So up until now, we've been working on our body, which we call a shaped blank. Yep. We've been, hopefully you've done a front wheel and a back wheel, and we want to put them together now into an assembly like this, where we bring all the parts together. And that's useful, well, for one, it creates a picture of, or a model of everything put together, and we can use those to make a drawing of the assembled object as well. All right, so how do we do that? I'm just going to close this one and we're going to create it from scratch. So, all right, so I'm going to assume we've got a shaped blank. I'm going to assume you've got your front wheel and your back wheel. They don't have to be called that, but I'm going to assume that you've got all of those parts already. Now, what we haven't got yet is we haven't got any axles. So let's quickly make some axles so, so that we've got all the parts that we need. So I'm going to go File, New, and I'm going to create, again, under metric, I'm going to use a standard millimeter part here. So I'm just going to create another part, and the part is called an axle. Let's see, we'll start a 2D sketch, select my YZ plane. I'm going to draw a circle like that, and we're using 3mm axles, so I'm just going to type 3 there for the diameter of the circle. Simple as that. Finish the sketch, and I'm going to extrude it. So click on extrude, and it's 90mm long. So 90, okay, done. So there's our axle. So I'm going to go File, Save, and call that axle. Here we go. Axle, I've already made one. That's okay. I'll just override it. Okay, so now we've got all the parts that we need. So now we're going to create our assembly. So if we go File, New, now instead of creating a new part, we're going to create an assembly. Now, what is an assembly? An assembly is just a bunch of parts that you've made assembled together. Simple as that. Okay, so I'm going to come across here and I'm going to pick a standard assembly and in millimeters. So that's the one I want. So I can double click or I can create, either way. And now here is my assembly. Okay, now when we create an assembly, we've got to place the parts into the assembly. So we come up here and go place. And the first part, we're going to use the shaped blank. So that's our main body. So I'm going to click on that and open that. Okay, now what I'm going to do for the first one, I want to right click and I want to, here we go, place grounded at origin. So what that does is that places the object, but it puts it at the origin, which is what we want. So place grounded at origin, and there we go. Now, I could place another copy of it and another copy. I could do as many copies of this as I want, but I only want one copy. So I'm just going to escape, use my escape key to get rid of that. And there's my body that's placed. Now, you know what? I'm just going to change the view of this. Visual style, I'm going to put shaded with edges just so I can see that a bit more clearly. Oh, and it's reminding me to save. So let's do that. So if I save, and let's call this Dragster Assembly. Okay, there we go. So, all right, we'll just go yes to all that. Okay, so there's the start of our assembly. Now, the next thing I want to put on is I want to put some axles into those axle holes. So I'm coming back to up to assembly, and I'm going to place, and this time I'm going to place an axle. So I can double click on axle. Now, there we go. So I've got one axle and I've got to put it in there. So I'm just going to place it nearby. So I'll put it there. Now I want another axle up the back here somewhere. So I'm going to place the other axle up here somewhere. Okay, so there's my two axles. I don't need any more axles, so I'm just going to press escape to stop placing axles. Now, that axle, I guess I could try to stick it in there, but that would be a bit difficult. What we need to do is constrain it. We need to tell Inventor where are we going to put that axle? How are we going to constrain that axle so that Inventor knows where it's got to go and how it can move. So I'm going to click on constraint like that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to maybe zoom in a little bit, and you can see with that constraint dialog box open, I can actually click. See how I can, if I hover, that's the center line of that axle. Yep. So if I click on that center line there, and what I want is I want that center line of that axle to line up with the center line of this hole. So let's zoom in. Now, can you see, depending on where I hover, different things are happening. It's highlighting different things. I want to highlight that long center line right through the middle of those holes there. So like that. And there we go, it's lined up. So now if I go OK, and let's have a look from the top and see what it's done. Okay, so it's lined up that axle. In fact, I can scroll around a little bit, yeah, and you can see it's put the axle in the hole. Now I can actually move this axle backwards and forwards now, but what I can't do is I can't move the axle up and down. I can only move it backwards and forwards in the hole because I've constrained its motion. I've told Inventor that the center line of that axle has got to line up with the center line of that hole. All right, let's do the other one. So I'm going to go constrain, and I'm going to click on that center line there, and I'm going to zoom in a little bit, and I'm going to click on, let's zoom in a bit more so I can, there we go. See, sometimes you've got to hover around a bit until you find the exact right thing. So that's the center line I want that goes right through the hole, like that. Okay, and now if I zoom all, and I come up to the top view, now I can see that this one is now constrained as well. Now, you know what? I would like to constrain these axles so that the axles are centered, so that I can't move them backwards and forwards like that. So how am I going to do that? Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to double click on this axle. Actually, you know what? I'll start with the body. So let me just go back to the home view. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a center plane in my body, and I'm going to put a center plane in those axles, and then I'm going to tell Inventor that those center planes have to line up. What does that mean? I'll show you. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to double click on my shaped blank. Double click on it. So now, can you see what's happened? I'm just editing that blank. So I'm editing the part. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to insert a plane. And the plane I'm going to insert, I want a plane that's a mid-plane between two other planes. In other words, I want to put a mid-plane right down the middle of my shape so that I can use that for aligning. So if I click here, now I want to put my mid-plane halfway between that plane there, and if I scroll around to the back, and that plane there. And can you see what it's done? It's created this plane here that's right down the middle of my shaped blank. Now you might think that looks really weird. Why would I do that? That has wrecked the shape of my dragster. But it's okay, because what I can do is I can come over here. In fact, I'll rename that plane. Instead of call it work plane 2, I'll call it the mid plane. Mid plane. Okay, like that, mid plane. Is that how you spell plane? No, I think it's like that, isn't it? Mid plane. That's it. So the mid plane of the body. What I can do, I'm not going to do it yet, but what I can do is I can right click and I can turn the visibility off. So I can use it for aligning stuff, but I don't have to look at it, which is good because I don't want a plane sticking out in the middle of my dragster. So you know what, I'm going to leave that visibility off. All right, so now that I've done that, I'm going to come back to my dragster. And if you look at my dragster, let's see. Okay, you know what? I better save it. So I'm coming back to my shaped blank, save it. All right, now if I come back to my dragster assembly, here's our shaped blank, of course. And that's the mid plane that I created. Okay, and if I don't click on it, it's not visible, but it's there. Okay. All right, now I need to do the same with my axles. So let's double click on my axle. And I'm going to, again, put a mid-plane through my axle. So I'm going to go mid-plane between two planes. I want a mid-plane between that plane on the end of that axle and, whoop, turn it around, and that plane. So can you see now it's created another mid-plane? Go back to my home view. So again, I'll save that. And now I'll come back to my assembly. And you can see now if I look at my axle, there's a mid-plane on the axle, and there's actually a mid-plane on this other axle as well, because remember those axles are just two copies of the same axle. So when I put the mid plane on one of them, and put the mid plane on the other one as well. Okay. All right. So now how do we line those planes up? Well, we're going to go constrain. Now, I can't see those planes here, but that's okay. I can see the planes over here. So what I want to do first is I want to line up the mid plane of the shaped blank, and I'll line that up with the mid plane of the first axle. Okay, and then I'm going to go okay. Well, actually, I'll just go apply. Oh, it didn't like that. Okay, if it doesn't like that, what we're going to do is we're just going to, if your constraint doesn't work, you're just going to switch these. So there's often two different ways to do the alignment. If it doesn't like one way, you just do the other way. So I'm going to do it that way instead. Doesn't like, I'm going to have to. Let me just cancel and I'll start again. Constrain. Okay, so remember I want to use that one, and I want to align that mid plane there with that work plane there, and apply. That's done. Okay, so if I close that now and I come back down here, you can see I can no longer move that axle backwards and forwards. That axle now is stuck and it's constrained so that it's always symmetrical. Let's do the same with this one here. So again, I'm going to constrain, and I'm going to choose that mid plane there and that mid plane there, and let's click. Oh, did you see when I clicked on that one, it automatically jumped into the right place? So that's the right one to use. So if I go okay, now that one there, both of those are fully constrained. Perfect. All right, now I'm going to add some wheels. So I'm going to place, let's do the front wheels first. So there's the front wheel. So I'm going to open the front wheel there. And now, if I look closely at this, let me just zoom in. Okay, I can see that's the way, that wheel needs to go on there like that. Okay, and I don't have to rotate it. So I'm just going to click there. Now I need to put, I'm going to zoom back out again. I need another wheel here, but this other wheel needs to be rotated. So I'm going to right click and I'm going to rotate Y. So that green is the Y. So rotate Y, and then I'm going to rotate Y again. And you can see now if I zoom in, you can see I've turned that wheel around so it's the right orientation. And I'm going to click that wheel there. And then I'm going to click escape because I've got my two front wheels approximately where I want them. All right, let's constrain. So again, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to select that center line. Oh, it's pretty hard to get. Sometimes you have to zoom right in to get it. So zoom right in. There we go. That center line there and that center line there. Perfect. Okay, that's worked nicely. And I can apply that. So that's done. Now I can do this one here. So that center line there and whoop, that center line there, and apply those as well. If you don't apply when you close this, it'll just go back to where it was before. So you do need to apply it. Let's cancel and let's have a look. So there, so if we look at the top here, so they're my wheels and they're now on the axles, but I can move the wheels. In fact, I can take the wheels all the way off, and I can move, actually I can move them all the way over here. I can, as long as they stay on the axle, I can move them around. I can spin them. But that's not what I really want. I want those axles to be lined up really nicely, so that I can't pull the wheels off the axles. So let's do that. Okay, so I'm going to go constrain again, and this time let's zoom in a little bit. I'm going to zoom right in here. This time I'm going to constrain that face. See how there's that little arrow that's pointing out of the face there? So I'm selecting that face there. And I want that face there to be constrained or lined up with that face there. Now, actually, you know what? I don't really want it to be lined up exactly. I want an off. Oh, actually, let's just apply it anyway. Apply. Oh, it didn't like that. Okay. So again, that means I've got to choose the other one. Flush like that. So let's do it again. That face there. That face there. Okay. This. Can you see this time it worked? Now I haven't applied it yet, so if I hit cancel, that would all disappear. But if I come up here to offset, I actually want that to be in a little bit. I don't want it to be completely flush. So what if I try 5 millimeters? You can see it now. Now it's lined up that face with that face, but with a 5 millimeter offset. So it's gone in by 5 millimeters. I like that. I think that's pretty good. So if I apply that now, Okay, and let's zoom back out again. And this time I want to do this wheel over here. So I'm just going to rotate so I can see that wheel there. And I'm going to zoom in. And I'm going to do the same thing again. So I'm going to select that face there and this face here. And they've aligned up, yeah, so I've obviously got the right one of these selected. And let's try that 5mm again. Okay, and that's worked. Now you know what could go wrong? Your wheel could jump out by 5mm. If it does that, I'll show you, it could do this. It could, if you put more, see how that I've gone minus 5mm and it's gone that way? So if your wheel goes the wrong direction, or the thing that you're trying to offset goes the wrong direction, try changing it from a positive to a negative. As it turns out, positive is correct for this. So let's apply that. Okay, good. All right, let's go back to home. Now I want to put the back wheels on. So I'm going to do the same thing I did before. I'm going to place, I'll do this reasonably quickly. Back wheel, open that. Let's zoom in. So that back wheel there, let's see, I want to put that back wheel on here, like this one here. So I'm just going to click that there. And then I want one here, but I want it rotated the other way. So again, I'm going to rotate. I'm going to right click, rotate Y, right click, rotate Y again. Okay, and now that one, click on there and escape. And I'm going to have those wheels. Now it's up to you, maybe you want that wheel there and that wheel there. What do you think looks best? That probably does look better, doesn't it? Why don't I do that? Okay, up to you, of course. Okay, so I'm going to zoom in here and I'm going to constrain again, and I'm going to now put my wheels on my axles. So there's my center line for my axle. There, zoom in, there's the center line for my wheel. Okay, let's zoom back out again. Okay, so that's worked. So I'm going to apply that. I like that. Now while I'm here, let's do this one as well. So this one here, pick the center line. We can't see that very well. Let me pick that center line there and the center line of the axle. Okay, and apply that one as well, and then get rid of that. Now let's have a look. Let's look at the home view now. In fact, let's look at the top view. So you can see, well, that's a bit weird, isn't it? So that, well, hang on, that wheel there needs to be lined up, and that wheel there also needs to be lined up. It needs to be constrained. So again, I'm going to go to my home view, and I'm going to constrain again. This time I'm going to constrain that face there with that face there. Now it didn't click, it didn't do that poppy thing and click, so I think I'm going to have to change sides like that. See how that worked? So that was good. But again, I want an offset, so I'm going to put an offset of, let's see what 5 does. Okay, 5 goes the right direction. That's good. So I'm going to apply that, and then I'm going to go back to home, and I'm going to scroll around, and I'm going to do this side as well. So let's zoom into there, okay, and constrain that side there, that face there, and that face there. Again, by 5, I want a 5mm, offset. Oh, can you see how that went the wrong way? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change that offset. Instead of 5, I'm going to change that to a -5. Okay, now that's gone the way that I want it to. Apply. Okay, and let's see, back to home. So that looks pretty good now. So now you can see that I can, let's just rotate it around a bit. I can rotate those wheels, which is good, but I can't pull them off the axle. And those axles, I can't pull them out. Everything is constrained nicely, so my assembly is now properly put together. And if I look from the top view, I can see, well, come from the top view, I can see everything's nicely centered. So that's really good. So we are done now. That is your assembly having been created. That's the end of the video.